Hey, how's it going, headbangers? I'm Brad, and welcome back to another episode of Rock and Roll Shop Talk. I was looking for something fun to do, an excuse to make a video about music, and I was thinking, you know what, let's do a top five list. And then after that, I'm like, okay, well, we're gonna do a top five list. What are we gonna do a top five list about? And I was like, you know what, let's do five albums that have changed my life. Not my five favorite albums, not even necessarily albums from my five favorite bands, just five albums that have had a massive influence on my musical tastes and the way I view music. And we're gonna have a lot of fun doing this. So we might as well jump into this. I'm going to try and do this in chronological order, for starting from when I was younger, getting on to a little bit older, so you can also see how my musical tastes have maybe helped develop over the years. Dump Jumping right into it. This one, released July 21st, 1987. Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction. Growing up, my dad listened to a lot of 60s and 70s rock. So the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Led Zeppelin, Aerosmith, all that kind of stuff was constant heavy rotation in our household. My mom was kind of whatever the pop music of the day, so you heard a lot of that. And then my brother comes home with Guns N' Roses. It was grittier, it was dirtier, there was bad words that you weren't allowed to say in there. And I think more than anything, it was different. It kind of had a bit of a negative charge where it kind of pissed parents off because, like I said, there's bad words in there that you weren't allowed to say. So when this album came out, I was only maybe 5 or 6 years old. I was born in 1981. Didn't know a lot about music at that point in time. Fast forward to, like, say, high school, when I was allowed to start building up my own musical collection, and you listen to that album, you're like, oh wow, there's actually some really excellent playing in here. And then you fast forward to even now, as I turn 43 a month from today, as this is being filmed, and the music still stands up almost 40 years after its release date. In my opinion, the best introductory release, first album by any band ever. And I don't think we'll ever see another album quite like Appetite for Destruction. Like, this one hits on so many levels. And the funny thing is how we weren't allowed to listen to Guns N' Roses as kids back in the day in the house because it pissed mom and dad off. Mom and dad listen to Guns N' Roses now. So what the hell happened there? All right, moving on. Released on October 8th, 1996, is Marilyn Manson, Antichrist Superstar. Now, if I was a little kid there, I thought that Guns N' Roses pissed mom and dad off. They ain't had nothing on Marilyn Manson. When this album came out, I was in grade 9, I believe. This is around the time where I really started getting into metal. Up until this point, I knew of and listened to Megadeth, Pantera, Metallica, and a few other bands, but this is where it's still pretty new to you and you're searching out new bands, new forms of metal. All of a sudden, this album gets released. This album's making huge headlines for anti-religious song matter and really starting to piss people off, which, as a bit of a malcontent myself, this is really going to get my attention. And when I finally get my hands on a recorded tape that my buddy Greg was able to give me, his sister got the album for Christmas one year, and I got Greg to record it for me because mom and dad were not going to fucking buy me this album. I'm sorry, it was not happening. Greg gets me this tape, and my life was forever changed. This is something completely different than anything I'd ever heard of before up till this point. It was dark, it was scary, and very, very provocative more than anything. I think one of the biggest things for me, though, was now I finally had some metal that I could call my own. Marilyn Manson was definitely not for everybody. As I said before, Pantera, Megadeth, Metallica, all those bands, all the dudes back in high school were already listening to all that stuff, and everybody seemed to really like that. But not everybody liked Marilyn Manson. In fact, there's some people that beat your ass for listening to that kind of music, which really is ridiculous when you think about it. This album was a huge presence in the foundational building blocks of my heavy metal taste in music. I remember having a recorded tape, not the one I mentioned that my buddy Greg gave me, but it was my heavy metal tape. All the heavy metal I had at that time to be able to listen to. And on one side, it was Metallica's Black Album. The other side was Marilyn Manson, Antichrist Superstar. That was all the metal I had available to me at that time to listen to, which brings me up to my number 3 album. Released July 25th, 1997, is Pantera's 101 Proof official live album. I got my hands on this album As I said earlier, all my friends listen to Pantera. We all love Pantera, but I did not have a Pantera album of my own. And I remember the summer after grade 9, my parents got sick and tired of me being a little asshole and shipped me down to Surrey, BC on a Greyhound bus to go see my grandparents. Yeah. And when they sent me, they gave me $100 spending money that I could do whatever the hell I want with while I'm down there. I got my grandmother to bring me into a CD store where I bought 4 CDs. And those 4 CDs was White Zombies, Astro Creep 2000. We had Megadeth's Countdown to Extinction. We had Pantera's Cowboys from Hell. And then also, drum roll, the official live 101 Proof Pantera Live. I remember being in the store and I knew I was going to get some Pantera, and Cowboys from Hell was my favorite Pantera album up to that point, and still may very well be if I were to put some thought and go into that one, which is very well, which we'll probably do on another show. Um, but I wanted to get as much Pantera as I could. So I had Cowboys from Hell. I knew that one was coming home. Now I've loved the song Walk, and I wanted to have that. So I'm looking at Vulgar Display of Power, and I'm almost going to get that. But I'm looking at the live, and it's got more songs than this. A live album is kind of like a greatest hits album, right? So I decided on that. Let's go home with the official live, and as my now I finally have Pantera of my own. So I walk out of there with the official live album, go home and listen to it, and it's got all these songs that I'd never heard of up to that point. None of my friends had the Great Southern Trendkill, so I'd never heard Suicide Note Part 2. I'd never heard War Nerve. This was all new to me and was just like mind blowing. Wow. And while I did have one friend that had Far Beyond Driven, now I had my own copies of Becoming, 5 Minutes Alone, uh, Strength Beyond Strength, like this is wowzer time for me. A lot of you that have been around me have heard me say this before. Growing up on the Hart Highway of Prince George, BC, where I grew up, Pantera wasn't just a band, it was a way of life, and now I had my hands on my own Pantera. So Pantera's 101 Proof Official Live is my number 3 album that helped change my life. Moving on to number 4. Released April 28, 1998, is Cannibal Corpse Gallery of Suicide. Where do you go from Metallica? Where do you go from Pantera? When you're a metalhead and you're looking for something new and you just want harder, you want faster, you want heavier, extreme music is the next logical step. Gallery of Suicide was my introduction to that extreme metal, death metal. I remember buying this album at the Sight and Sound on Victoria Street, downtown Prince George, BC, and listening to it in my Discman in the back seat of my mom's car on our way back up the Hart Highway to go do some grocery shopping. And as I'm listening to it, I'm reading the lyric sheets as this goes. And I've never heard or seen anything like this up to this point. The one that really sticks out to me from that moment was when I'm listening to the ending song, Crushing the Despised. The lyrics start off with something along the lines like, "Screwdriver repeatedly lands in his face, gouges and hacks at a man in disgrace." I'm just like, wow. I remember walking into the store because the album was done playing. My mom was still shopping, and walking up to her, and I was like, "I've just listened to the most heaviest, insane thing," and she was just like, "I don't really care," because she didn't. Up to this point, I thought Metallica was heavy, and yes, they absolutely are, and I thought Megadeth was heavy. What the fuck is Cannibal Corpse? Holy crap, it was another worldly heavy and just completely different. Now, if I thought Marilyn Manson and Antichrist Superstar could be off putting to people, Cannibal Corpse had the ability to just like clear out the room. I remember my girlfriend at the time absolutely fucking hated Cannibal Corpse, which as your 16-year-old kid or something like that, it makes you a little bit bummed out that you wish your girlfriend would like your music, but at the same time, it was starting to show me that, there's levels to this, and the stuff that I like, the next person might not like, and what you like, I sure as hell might not like myself, and it's all fair, right? I fully understand that Cannibal Corpse isn't for everyone, but they were definitely my intro, my fascination into just otherworldly, heavy, extreme music. Absolutely loving it. My favorite song on that album, probably Dismembered and Molested. Hopefully, I'll get to see him play it live one day. I've seen him twice, haven't seen, and they haven't done it yet, but maybe one day we'll get to fulfill that bucket list dream. Alright, so this last one here isn't technically an album. It's a live box set release. But I do have it on CD, so that's how this one counts. Off of the Big Four box set release, am gonna pick the Megadeth live performance on this one. So how this one worked for me is up to this point, I knew Megadeth, I liked Megadeth, I preferred Megadeth to Metallica, but was never over the moon on Megadeth. And then one day I went into the local music store. I saw the box set. I was like, oh shit, is that what I think it is? And I picked this up, bought it, went home and was watching it. And I think I'd already seen it a couple times up to that point. And then one day I'm sitting there and I'm watching the Megadeth set on that one. And it was during the song Hangar 18 when Dave Mustaine, singer and guitarist for Megadeth, and Chris Broderick, their guitarist, they would walk up to the front. One of them would take turns walking up to the front of the stage and just solo the hell out of that song. When he was done his solo, he would take a step back, and then the other one would step forward, and then just solo the hell out of the song. And they just kept back and forth like that. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching this, and I'm like, wow. And for the first time, I am now seriously paying attention to Megadeth. Completely stunned and amazed by this musicianship. Like, I had heard most of Megadeth's earlier albums up to this point, but for some reason they just never really clicked with me. I was more of the Countdown for Extinction, Euthanasia, Cryptic Writings era Megadeth up till that point. And then watching the musicianship on Hangar 18, like suddenly I've got to go back and listen to my CDs I already have, and I'm start picking up on Megadeth. And then I got to go to the local music store and I got to start buying more Megadeth CDs. And after that, I started buying every Megadeth CD, every Megadeth live DVD I can get my hands on. And I am very proud to say, based on the Megadeth performance on this right here, Megadeth is my favorite band. They're one of what I call my Mount Rushmore of Rushmore, four, not five. My Mount Rushmore of top of favorite bands, which is another video that I'll do one day. But Megadeth is just their god to me. Absolutely love them. Once again, based on the performance on this, so they definitely get included in there. So that's my list of top 5 albums that have changed my life. Let us know what you think about it in the comments down below. Let us hear what your top 5 albums that have changed your life are in the comments below. We'd like to hear it. Before we bounce out of here, if you could do me a solid, hit the like and subscribe buttons on our way out of here. It does amazing things for the algorithm. It helps pump up the show. And as I'm heading out the door here, I just want to throw out a few honorable mentions that were given serious consideration for top albums that have changed my lives, but didn't quite make the cut. So here we go. We got Korn's self-titled album. That was my intro to nu metal, which played a huge part in my teenage years. Sublime's self-titled album. Need I say more? Wow. NWA Straight Outta Compton. We got Ice-T's Freedom of Speech. We got Ozzy Osbourne's No More Tears. And we've got Iron Maiden's Best of the Beast. Not Number of the Beast. Best of the Beast. Alright, we're out of here. Alright, we're out of here. Hope everyone has an amazing day. And as always, may the power of death metal compel you.